That was Erickson's description. I prefer a little more descriptive, but you get the idea. Mike, we did a show for 6 people. Mike, laugh, Ed. Mike, and who was the last one? Ed, who was it?
Hold on, I'm trying to recall. Mike, and Huck.
Oh, that's it, Huck.
I forgot Huck.
So there you go. So now let me really turn on the ignition and bring in the Preakness, because we start the second hour with the Preakness race, which 8-horse field, which should qualify. It fits right into what our motif might be here today with Justify, really in the post position 7. Same post position, by the way, he was at the Derby. Doesn't make any difference. Post position at the Preakness. It's not 20 horses. It's only 8. It's a longer, listen to me talk horse racing like an aficionado. It is a longer straightaway out of that. It's much longer to get to the first turn, so everybody's not banging into each other. There's a separation by the time you get to the first turn. So it's not, post position is never a factor at the Preakness. Number one, you don't have a lot of horses who are going to compete, after they got beat at the Derby. And there's a lot of theories, and we're going to talk to Randy Moss about this a little bit later in this hour. A lot of theories of why the Preakness, why it so happens all the time. It seems like every year where the Derby winner wins the Preakness. I mean, the field isn't as good. People get a little nervous. They don't want to go up against a big horse. The first horse is the one who, the horse that wins the Derby is revved up. He's raring to go. He's kind of lathered. He's warmed up properly. Whatever the reason. And Baffert has been superb. Baffert now this is his 5th horse, I believe it is, that he has taken the Preakness off winning the Derby, and the 4 previous horses have all won the Preakness. So Baffert seems to have this going down to a science with this 2-horse deal here from that standpoint. So, it's this horse. You didn't have to be Eddie Arcaro, or Gary Stevens to tell you how good this horse was right out of the gate. This horse, Derby Day 2 weeks ago, looked like the real deal. He had a great ride. Don't get me wrong. No mud in his face. Very nice and comfortable. The horse from Ireland got absolutely jostled from gate 11 and never really got untracked. And that's where the amount of horses can really destroy an animal, a good one in that field. It's a circus, that Derby. And he's not going to be here now at the Preakness. See, that's the other issue. It is pretty easy to win that second Triple Crown race when you've won the first one, because nobody who's any good in the Derby, everybody wanted to run like the Dickens. They, put a horse in the Derby, and there are some good horses. But once they lose, they bide their time, and they wait for the right opening to attack the 3-year-old Derby winner and maybe get him at the Belmont. It's fascinating. It's unfair to the racing fan because nobody takes a crack at Justify in the Preakness, so he has an easy race. And then it's unfair to Justify, or in this case, he's the Derby winner, the horse who wins the first 2 legs, because then he's got horses coming out of the woodwork who haven't run in 6 weeks, so it's their time to find a race, and they go out there and they go bury him in the Belmont. So it's really, it's fast. He has a unfair advantage because the horses stink in the Preakness. Nobody wants to challenge him in that race. So he has an unfair advantage there. It's easy. He has an unfair advantage. And then he has an unfair disadvantage in the Belmont, which is really, when you think about it, it's fast. Even in the Belmont, the jockeys gang up on everybody. The other horses in the Belmont, what a lot of the jockeys try to do is they try to entrap the horse going for the Triple Crown and try to get that jock to move too quick. It happened with Smarty Jones, to move too quick and to sort of make that jockey panic, realizing, that's a long race. And if you don't make the move at the right time, you will not have anything left down the stretch. And that's where you can be tracked down. And that's happened to a lot of these horses. DeSormo was another one. That's what's happened to a lot of these horses who have lost the Triple Crown, by a head, because they move too quick in that long turf at Belmont. Because a lot of the jockeys, they don't care about them winning. What they do is they gang up on a horse that's trying for the Triple Crown, and they sacrifice their own race to hurt the Derby winner or the Preakness winner. And so it becomes an interesting byplay, and you got to be a very savvy jockey not to fall into that trap. Plus, you got to have the great animal. But you got to have a very savvy jockey not to fall in that trap. This does not happen here in the Preakness. The Preakness, I mean, you got 7 horses. I think there's only one of them who raced in the Derby, and that's Good Magic, who had a pretty good race. So he's 3-1. You only have one of them he's from the 5th position. So you only have one of the horses, and that was a very good Derby field. You only have one of the horses from that race racing here in the Preakness. The other 5 or 6, I mean, good. You wouldn't race them in your backyard. Lucas has got 2 horses. Dwayne Lucas, who's, ancient, he's got 2 horses. And I'm not trying to say that to be mean. He's 82 years old. He doesn't have 2. He's got 2 horses in this event. So that makes it a very, very interesting situation as far as this race is concerned. Now, listen, if you've noticed, and I have, NBC, likes to promote the idea of their championship season. And they do it in the spring where they have these championship events, and they like to promote that all spring. I mean, they have the TPC in golf. They have obviously the NHL. They have the Triple Crown Series in horse racing. They have the French Open. So they like to talk about their championship calendar in the springtime. Now, it had a lot more teeth to it when they had Wimbledon to conclude it, and they had the U.S. Open golf in the middle. Well, they lost Wimbledon to ESPN, and they lost the U.S. Open golf to Fox. So they don't have those 2 anymore. So if they had the U.S. Open and TPC in golf, and they had the French Open, and they had Wimbledon in tennis, and they had the Triple Crown Series in horse racing, plus the NHL playoffs, that's a pretty good, I know it's the NHL, it's not the NBA, but that's a pretty good circle of events that they can throw at you. They don't have that anymore, which makes it tricky. But what they do want in the worst way is they want, and if you've read all, I've heard more about Eddie Ochek's picks, and I guess Eddie was phenomenal in the Derby. He had the 1, 2, 3 right on, which I didn't realize. But I watched it last night, and I got Kenny Abbott breaking down Eddie Ochek's Preakness picks, the hockey game. And, every time you turn around, they show you on their scroll what they're broadcasting this weekend. Because when you get right down to it, if they can there's nothing worse for NBC than having a Belmont with nothing on the line. Nothing. That is death television. You got to be a horse racing aficionado, which there aren't enough of us out there to ever watch the Belmont without that Triple Crown on the line. Breeders' Cup Classic you can get into. The Saratoga's got a little charm to it. Belmont's a waste without the Triple Crown on the line. So they need, and they are going to promote this until the cows come home. They are promoting Justify like you wouldn't believe. Because if they get Justify to win a Preakness, and they had, 17 million people watch the Derby. If they get Justify winning the Preakness, and then they get Justify sitting there in 3 weeks at Belmont on a Saturday, late afternoon, early June at 10 of 7, and that's the time they're going to run that race, they are going to have a very, very good rating. And remember, as we learned with the Derby, the Capitals in Pittsburgh waited to eons to play the first game. They were delayed because of the weather, and they wanted to give you the Derby. And Washington and Tampa, go look at your little schedule. Washington and Tampa are scheduled to play at 7:15 on Saturday. That is game 5, which there now will be one. That game might not start to 5 to 8 because that game is going to take a complete back seat to a horse. Randy Moss in a sec. Mad Dog Unleashed.